She stopped for a stranger you wanted to believe who he really was. The dark truth. The rain fell in thick sheets, drumming against the windshield like a million tiny fingers trying to get her attention. Sarah was driving home, her heart pumping and adrenaline racing, when she saw him standing there, drenched but composed. A man, tall and gaunt, with eyes that seemed to flicker like the streetlights' reflections in puddles. He was a stranger, and something about him screamed trouble. But she slowed down, sure that this choice, this singular moment, would change her life forever. As he approached, she noticed the strange things about him. His clothes were tattered, yet they had a certain elegance, like a forgotten time wrapped in his being. His hair hung in damp strands. But as he moved closer, she caught a faint whiff of sandalwood clinging to him, both comforting and unsettling amid the chaos of the storm. A shiver ran down her spine. It was the kind of scent that reminded you of secrets hidden in dark corners, whispers of the past begging to be heard. "Can you give me a lift?" His voice was low, almost melodic, but there was something sinister lurking beneath. Cars zipped past, headlights blaring like small suns fighting against the dusk. Sarah hesitated. Her heart raced, pounding in her ears like a warning drumbeat. There was a crowd of shadows behind him, slightly shifting in the gloom, yet the roads were empty. Where had they come from? What were they doing out here? Hilltop Hollow wasn't known for late-night passers, especially not in weather like this. Yeah, okay, she finally said, heart hammering. As he climbed in, a chill washed over the car. The rain pounded harder and louder, almost drowning out her thoughts. He didn't shut the door like a normal person. It slammed shut with a resounding thud that echoed inside her chest. He smiled, revealing a stark white grin, too bright for the darkness creeping around them. It felt unnatural, like the pulling back of a veil that hid something wicked underneath. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As they drove deeper into the storm, he turned to her and asked, "Do you believe in fate?" His gaze was penetrating. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. The air grew thick, punctuated by the lightning that split the sky, illuminating his face in a flash of otherworldly light. A strange feeling rolled in, like the tide before a storm. The question hung between them, heavy and suffocating. The rain turned to a deluge, wiping away the world outside, leaving only the two of them in an echo of silence. What was he really after? She could feel the darkness inching closer, the shadows growing longer, and behind his charming smile, there remained an unknown terror ready to surface. Her instincts screamed at her. Something terrible was about to happen, and somehow he seemed to know it too. What secrets lay behind those curious eyes? And was she driving toward them, or worse, toward her own doom? The silence stretched between them, weighted with unease. Sarah's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The headlights sliced through the curtain of rain, illuminating glimpses of twisted trees lining the road like sentinels, their branches reaching out as if to capture the fleeting sense of safety. "Fate, huh?" she echoed, her voice shaky, a whisper lost among the thunder. "What do you mean by that?" He leaned closer, his breath mingling with the fog on the window. "Everything happens for a reason, don't you think?" This he gestured to the darkness surrounding them. This moment, it was meant to be. Was it the storm making her heart race, or was it his words suffocating and entrancing at once? She felt trapped, fish in a net. "Look, I just want to get home safely." Home, he mused, his gaze never wavering from hers. A comforting thought. Isn't it? But sometimes home isn't where you think it is. His smile widened, yet something in his eyes spoke a different truth. The shadows flickered like tiny flames in his irises, making her pulse quicken. "What are you saying?" Fear prickled at the back of her neck, that he didn't answer her question. Instead, he turned his head to the side and stared out into the rain-soaked night. "Do you see those trees?" His voice softened. "Each one holds a story, a memory hidden in its bark. They've witnessed joys and tragedies." His cryptic words sent a shiver down her spine. Clouds rolled above, their rumbling growl echoing the turmoil in her mind. She faced the road again, trying to shake off the oppressive feeling that gripped her heart. "I don't have time for stories. Just tell me where to drop you off. Where do you think they're headed?" he asked suddenly, tilting his head. "The trees? They're all waiting for someone, just like you are." The hairs on her arms stood on end. Who was this man? She risked a glance at him. His expression remained unfazed, a curious mix of amusement and something darker. The thunder roared louder, a warning bell as she approached the intersection up ahead. She took a breath and pressed on the gas pedal, the car speeding forward, hoping to put distance between them. But he grabbed her wrist suddenly, his grip ice cold. "Not yet, Sarah. You need to understand something. In the end, it's all connected. Every life intertwines. What if I told you yours has already been written?" "Written?" Panic began to spike, like a pressure cooker ready to explode. "What are you talking about?" He leaned in, his face close enough for her to see the flecks of yellow in his eyes. "You have a choice. The shadows will come for you soon. If you listen, you can evade them. But if you don't..." Before he could finish, a piercing scream suddenly split the air, an agonizing shriek that resonated from somewhere in the distance, making her blood run cold. Her heart thundered in her chest as she scanned the darkened streets for the source of the sound. What was that? She whimpered, eyes wide with fear. An omen. He leaned back, a grin playing at the edges of his lips, as if savoring her terror. "You're not as far from doom as you think." And just like that, the lights flickered, and she swore she saw something moving outside, shadows darting across her peripheral vision, too fast to catch. Her breathing quickened, a tightness enveloping her chest like a vice. "What are you saying?" she gasped, her voice a strained whisper. "Do you believe in fate, Sarah?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a haunting whisper. "Because tonight it will come for you." The rain lashed harder, and she felt the car trembling under the force of something she couldn't see. Was she already too late to escape? In that moment, the headlights flickered and the shadows loomed larger, pressing in against the edges of her vision. Instinctively, she pressed the accelerator, desperate to escape the dark truth clawing its way into the car. Would she outrun whatever fate awaited her? But as the car surged forward, she knew one thing for certain. The unknown was just beginning to unravel. What would she do when the truth finally found her? The engine roared as Sarah pressed the gas pedal harder, the tires screeching against the wet asphalt. Rain hammered against the windshield, obscuring her view as she fought to maintain control. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, igniting every nerve. The world outside blurred in a chaotic whirl of water and shadows, mirroring the storm raging inside her mind. "What do you mean, Dune? What shadows?" she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper as she shot a glance at her passenger. His piercing eyes glinted with something wicked, a knowing smile tugging at his lips. "Time is a river, Sarah. It flows in both directions," he said, his tone eerily calm, even as chaos enveloped them. "Some currents pull us forward, while others tug us back to where we began." "You're insane." The words fell from her lips like a lifeline, desperate for reason in the madness. "Am I?" He laughed softly, the sound sending chills down her spine. "You're the one in a rush, yet you know you're heading into the storm. All of this was set in motion well before you turned this key." She swore her heart stopped. Sirens blared in the distance, chilling, wailing cries that echoed like a warning bell over the storm-'s fury. In a haze of panic, she glanced in the mirror, searching for shadows emerging from the depths of the night. Were there figures moving behind them? Or was it just her mind slipping into madness? "Just drop me off, please," she shouted, her grip tightening so hard on the wheel that her fingers ached. Soon, he said, his voice slippery like oil. But first, you need to understand that you are not alone in this. The shadows want you, but there are others who would help you. If you start listening, you'll hear them. She shivered at his words, spectral faces of the past lurking menacingly in her mind. What others? She had cut ties, turned her back on the friendships that once held her compass steady. But now, they felt like distant memories, fading like sunlight swallowed by approaching night. Why would I listen to you? Her voice was steadier now, each word more defiant. You're just some stranger, am I? He leaned forward again, and she caught the glint of something hard in his eyes. In a blink, we're all strangers. But it's the choices we make that bind us. Have you ever considered you might owe someone? Maybe you owe your own fate. With a jerk, they hit a pothole, the tires splashing through a puddle, and Sarah swerved instinctively. She could see nothing but the rain-soaked road ahead, visions of shadows creeping in and out of her line of sight. Dread coiled tighter in her stomach, and her breath came short and rapid. "Stop!" she screamed suddenly, the words exploding from her in a mixture of fear and determination. "Stop the car now." "Not yet," he countered with a calmness that made her question her grip on reality. "You're about to learn what you really are, Sarah. What you might block from your mind." The sky crackled with lightning, illuminating a figure standing just ahead on the road, a woman, drenched and motionless in the downpour, with a face hidden beneath cascading hair. Time seemed to freeze around them, the scream of sirens fading into silence. "Help her, Sarah!" She guessed the answer. He urged, the fervor in his voice building like the storm raging outside. "Are you out of your mind?" she shouted, momentarily forgotten in the quaking dread of her own impending choices. But deep inside, a pulse of recognition throbbed. What had she left behind? Her pulse aligned with the stranger's unlikely plea. With one last glance at her passenger, she knew time was running out. Would she heed the call of her past, or flee deeper into despair? As she pressed the brake, the choice loomed like the shadows gathering around her. No turning back now. What awaited her would change everything. Would she have the courage to confront her hidden truths? The car jerked to a halt, tires splattering water across the rain-soaked pavement. Heart racing, Sarah stared at the woman standing in the road, her soaked dress clinging to her body like it was part of the storm itself. Shadows twisted in the downpour, framing the spectral form like a ghost summoned from the depths of her past. "Get out," her passenger urged, his voice sharper now, cutting through the rain with an urgency that sent a shiver up her spine. "You have to help her." "Help her? I don't even know who she is," Sarah shouted back, feeling as if the very air around them had thickened, suffocating her resolve. The rain splattered against the windshield, an ominous rhythm matching the pounding of her heart. "Trust me, Sarah. She's connected to you more than you realize." The man's gaze was fierce now, intent and unwavering. "It's time to face your truth." The woman hesitated, then seemed to shift as if becoming part of the storm itself. Her hair fell away to reveal a familiar face, one that churned the memories Sarah had tried to forget into a tempest of feelings. It was Ellie, her best friend from years ago, the one who had stood by her side through every high and low until Sarah had severed their bond in a fit of self-preservation. Ellie. Sarah breathed, an aching nostalgia mingling with guilt. "What would happen to you, Sarah?" Ellie's voice cut through the chaos, raw and desperate. "You have to come back. You're running away without even knowing why." Panic clawed at Sarah's throat, rising like bile. The faces of her past crowded in her memory, the friendships she had shattered, the opportunities lost. "Why now?" she whispered, clutching the steering wheel as if it were a lifeline. "Why show up like this?" "Because you're at a crossroads. The shadows are real, and they're coming for you." Ellie's words were drenched with urgency, but something sinister lurked in the energy swirling between them. "They want to take you back, and if you don't help me, you may never break the cycle." The man beside her shifted, his expression darkening. "Don't listen to her," he growled. "She's a mirage, a reflection of your fear." "Stop," Sarah shouted, her voice echoing in the confined space. The two figures pulled at her from opposite ends, a tug of war against the backdrop of the storm. But beneath the noise, a weary determination ignited within her. I'm not just going to choose. Choose, Sarah. The man's insistence was fierce, but Ellie's eyes glimmered with despair. You can't keep running. You owe it to yourself to figure out who you really are. Sarah's mind spun like the whirlpool of rain enveloping the world outside. Memories of laughter and tears fought against the wall she had built around her heart. But the shadows whispered louder, pressing against her bones. They wanted in. Ripping herself away from their grasp, she thrust open the car door, the rain crashing against her skin as she stepped out, soaking wet in an instant. I want answers, she shouted into the storm, desperation spilling over like the rain around her. Just tell me, who do I have to save? Ellie stepped closer, water streaming from her hair like tears. You're not just saving me, you're saving yourself. A thunderclap split the sky, and in that instant, Sarah felt something shift the air heavy with revelation, yet charged with uncertainty. Look, Ellie pointed. Behind you. Sarah spun around, dread pooling in her stomach. From the shadows emerged figures dark, amorphous shapes clawing their way into the light. She barely had time to react. What are they? She gasped, panic tightening her chest as the figures drew nearer, swirling malevolently like smoke in the storm. Your past is coming to reclaim you, the man shouted, stepping protectively in front of her. You can't let them take you back. But as the shadows whipped towards her, Sarah's heart raced with the terrifying realization that some truths were meant to be faced and not fled from. What would she do now, standing on the brink between liberation and despair? Before her lay an uncertain path, and both her past and future were about to collide. Choose wisely, Sarah, Ellie urged. You might lose more than you can imagine. Would she have the strength to face the darkness and uncover the truth, or would the shadows consume it all? As the shadows drew closer, their cold tendrils licked at Sarah's ankles, crawling up her legs like an invasion of ice. The storm rumbled above, echoing the turmoil inside her. Fear knotted her gut, and time seemed to blur as everything spun out of control. Stay back, she cried, throwing her hands in front of her as if she could physically push the darkness away. Her breath quickened, each inhale shaky and filled with apprehension. Ellie's voice broke through the chaos. They're manifestations, Sarah. You have to confront them. If you don't, they'll take you under. Her eyes shimmered with an intensity that pierced through the rain, urging Sarah to look deeper. Confront? What does that even mean? Sarah felt a swell of frustration bubble up, battling against the swell of memories resurfacing like drowned corpses. She could see the faces of those she'd hurt, faces twisted in anguish. A figure lunged at her, just inches from her face, a familiar face, distorted by dark strands and a ghastly expression. It was Matt, her childhood companion, whose life she had abandoned when tragedy struck. You created this, Sarah. You walked away. He yelled, his hollow eyes pleading for acknowledgement. No, she shouted back, shaking her head violently. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I was saving myself. But doubt seeped in, gnawing at her certainty. Perhaps walking away had indeed damned the lives of others, leaving her path littered with despair. The man beside her shifted, his protective stance faltering for a split second. You can't let them get to you, he shouted, but his voice wavered as if uncertainty was the only truth that now bound him to the moment. More figures emerged from the haze, their faces shifting between those she longed for and those that taunted her. They whispered accusations, drowning her in the weight of guilt she thought she had buried long ago. The shadows swirled faster, tightening their grip around her heart. Suddenly, a crack of lightning illuminated the scene, revealing Ellie's pale face. You have to forgive yourself, Sarah. These shadows are only as powerful as you allow them to be. Forgiveness? The word hung in the air like a ghost. Could she really grant herself that peace? She couldn't shake the thought. A warmth flickered inside her, but she was terrified to let it grow as another one of the shadows lunged. This time at Ellie, Sarah acted instinctively. "No!" she screamed, stepping forward, her body a desperate shield between the darkness and a vestige of her past. "Let her go." But the shadow merely twisted, bypassing Ellie and advancing towards Sarah, sinuous and insistent. "Face us or be consumed," it hissed. In that moment, time hung heavy, and Sarah realized the truth was far darker than she had imagined. While she fought against these figures, they weren't simply manifestations of her past pain. They were the echoes of her choices, the consequences bearing down like a thunderstorm. The rain seemed to pause, breath caught in awe of her revelation. "Do it," the man said, his voice electric with urgency. "Embrace the pain. Only then can you reclaim your life." Sarah took a trembling step forward, heart pounding like thunder, matching the storm above. "I will not let you drown me anymore," she said defiantly, hoping her words would banish the shadows looming at the edges of her sanity. The shadows flared, recoiling at her defiance. But some sought to anchor themselves deeper, whispering their secrets, threats disguised as truths. "This is only the beginning," they chorused, fading into the mist as Sarah made her stand. Behind her, Ellie's face bore a mixture of pride and apprehension. "You've taken the first step, but the real battle lies ahead," she said softly, fading back, leaving a trace of hope behind. Just as the last murmur of the shadows dissipated, another crack of lightning struck. The storm intensified. In the distance, a figure appeared beyond the deluge, standing stark against the downpour, drawing closer with every heartbeat. Who could this new arrival be? Was he friend or foe? Clearly determined, the figure stepped out of the rain, but the darkness behind Sarah swelled, ready to strike again, and she had no idea what shadows it brought with it. "Sarah," the figure called, his voice cutting through the storm. "You must listen to me. Your fate is tied to mine in ways you cannot yet comprehend." What connection could he possibly have to her tangled fate? And could she trust him to help reveal the truth before the storm claimed her once and for all? "Who are you?" Sarah's voice broke through the roaring wind, trembling as she fought against the heaviness clawing at her heart. The shadows waited, pulsating like an unseen heartbeat, hungry for her fear. "I am here to guide you," the figure replied, stepping closer, his features becoming clearer. A stark, angular face framed by wet hair. His eyes, dark and deep, bore into her as if looking straight through her guarded heart. "You don't recognize me now, but I was a part of your past before you ran." The storm intensified, lashing at them with rain and wind, but Sarah felt a warmth emanating from within, pushing back against the icy grip of the shadows. "Why should I trust you?" she demanded, her voice growing stronger. "What do you want from me?" He took another step closer, braving the swirling shadows that recoiled as if recognizing him. "You seek forgiveness, but you must first acknowledge what lies within. I carry the truth you've hidden away beyond the hurt, beyond your fears." Something in his voice drew her attention. It was a tone she had longed to hear, but never expected again. There was a tinge of familiarity she couldn't quite place. She shook her head, emotions crashing over her like waves. "You're just a trick of the storm, another one of them." "No." His voice pierced through her confusion. "I'm not your shadow. I'm a consequence, yes, but I come with a choice. You left me, Sarah, but I've returned to help you face the past you keep trying to escape." The wind howled louder, blowing fiercely around them. The shadows quivered, inching closer as they fed on her uncertainty. In that moment, the shadows seemed to whisper more urgently, their words a cacophony of guilt and blame. "You abandoned him. Choose embrace your guilt or lose yourself." Every sound intertwined, every thought a jumbled mess. She didn't want to go back there. Memories lurked, rising like smoke in her mind, the laughter, the happiness, the clenching fear of loss. The face of her childhood friend swam before her once more, but now it was a man, stripped of innocence. "Look at me," he demanded, and Sarah hesitated before meeting his gaze. What you didn't do, it's not the end of the story. It's fuel for your transformation. You have a chance to break free. You just need to confront your choices head on. What if I can't? Silence hung in the air, thick and unyielding. Encased in tension, her heart hammered as the shadows seemed to leer, twisting their forms, anticipating her response. You can. That's why I'm here, he said, his voice steady, grounding her. Remember the love we shared before the chaos? Harness that. Draw strength from it. Do not fear it. Let it awaken your resolve. As another locking rush of shadows pressed against her, a sudden clarity burst through like the eye of the storm. The fleeting warmth ignited inside her like a small flame, pushing against the darkness. I can do this, she shouted defiantly. But the figure's face darkened, revealing the toll of her indecision. They won't let you go so easily, he pointed behind her, where the shadows surged violently. They will fight back. You have to face their darkness with your light, or they will swallow you whole. Sarah took a deep breath, glancing at the figure once again. It was as if he was pulling at strands of her soul, weaving back together everything that had been fragmented. You can't let them win, he urged, his voice rising with urgency as the shadows coiled tightly around her. What I have to do, Sarah shouted, her heart racing in sync with the boisterous storm rumbling around them. Embrace your pain. Relive it. Feel everything you tried to bury and use it against them. He instructed, his visage fierce. The shadows hissed, and the figure took a step back. I will help you through this, but I cannot fight for you. This battle is yours. As the weight of his words landed heavily on her, she felt a shiver course through her body. Can she muster the strength to reclaim her truth before darkness overtakes her? The shadowy figures twitched restlessly at the edges of her mind, ready for the onslaught. Sarah, are you ready? He implored urgently, the storm still howling, the stakes impossibly high. In that moment, facing her own demons, she had one choice left. But only the shadows knew what lurked within her decision. Would confronting the past be her salvation or her ultimate undoing? The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of despair swirling around her. But Sarah relentlessly held onto the light blossoming inside her. This was no mere storm. It was a crucible, a fierce test of her will to confront all that she had hidden away. Feel everything, the figure urged, his eyes unwavering as they pierced through the tempest. You have to remember what you try to forget. Only then can you have the strength to fight back. The memories crashed over her like waves on a rocky shore. It was a montage of laughter, childhood games, and a piercing scream. She gasped. The scene shifted a glimpse of that evening when everything changed. His face pale and wounded. The accident, she couldn't prevent the guilt that had clung to her like a mist ever since. No, she cried, shaking her head. The shadows twisted, a dark cyclone hungry for her agony. But she summoned every ounce of her strength. I want to let you take me. Embrace it, the figure shouted over the howling winds. Every moment of pain carries your power. A stab of anger shot through her. It was all she had left. She recalled the day he pleaded for help, how she had turned away, frightened yet frozen. Her own cowardice had smeared the outlines of their past, erasing the boy who once sparkled with life. The weight pressed on her chest, threatening to crush her spirit. She found her voice amid the storm. I can't change the past. I was scared. I was just a kid. But even as she spoke, another wave of realization struck her. Had she allowed that fear to define her forever? Yes, he pressed, stepping closer, but you can change what it means. Feel the guilt, the sorrow. Let it fuel your courage. The shadows roared, furious at being cast into the light of her revelation. They clawed at her, trying to drag her back into the depths, but she stood firm. With each breath, she encircled the emotions she had long silenced. Fear became resolve. Regret morphed into resolve, and from the ashes of her sorrow, a fire ignited deep within her. Bring it on, she screamed, challenging the darkness, her heart racing with newfound conviction. The howling wind waned to whispers, and the storms began to recede as her inner light illuminated the surrounding chaos. Now unleash it, he encouraged, practically vibrating with urgency. The shadows faltered, briefly retreating as if intimidated by her growing luminosity. Sarah pushed forward, remembering everything she had tried to erase. The smiles, the laughter, the bond they once shared. It was all stitched into her being. I'm not the girl who ran from her shadow. I'm stronger than this. With that declaration, she felt the shadows shuddering around her. They raged, whispering vile things, but their darkness was no longer a veil. It was a canvas on which she began to paint her truth. She closed her eyes, inhaled sharply, and unleashed a pulse of energy, lighting up the storm like fireworks on a 4th of July night. The brilliance spread outward, pushing against the shadows, exposing their weakness for all to see. Then, just as she felt the pressure lifting, a shrill laughter split through the air. You think you can fight me? A voice, slick and poisonous, slithered from the dark. You're still trapped in your fear, Sarah. You're still just a child. Rattled, Sarah faltered momentarily. That voice ignited another memory, an echo from her past she thought she'd silenced. The final puzzle piece to understanding the true nature of her struggle. The man standing before her shifted, morphing into an indistinct haze of faces, those of people she had loved and lost. Each expression wore the marks of expectation and disappointment, tugging at her heart. Face it, the real battle lies within, he yelled, grounding her in that raw moment. Use this. With trembling hands, she reached for the memories, harnessing their energy, focused and unwavering. Would she finally confront the shadow that had fed on her fear for so long? Or would the darkness reclaim her, as it had before? With each heartbeat thundering through her, Sarah prepared to face not just her past, but the looming truth that awaited her in the depths of the worst storm yet. The question hung in the air, thick with anticipation. Was she prepared for the secrets concealed in the darkness that still loomed? What would she discover when she turned the storm inside out? The air crackled with tension as Sarah summoned every fragment of her courage, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The shadows hissed, pushing against her resolve, but she refused to buckle. She recalled every pain, every disappointment fuel for her rebirth. Step forward, the figure urged, his voice a lighthouse cutting through the murky darkness. It's time to confront him. You know who he is. With a grim determination, she stepped closer to the vortex of shadows swirling before her. Each whisper curled into her ears, taunting her, but now they felt almost powerless. Memories surged as laughter, the warmth of their friendship, and the gut-wrenching sorrow that followed. Stop hiding, the taunting voice sneered. You think you can outrun your past? It will always be there, lurking in the shadows. Not this time, she shouted. The light within her blazed brighter, a shield of defiance against the darkness. You don't own me. The mist shifted, revealing shapes blurred but familiar. There was the boy again, the one she couldn't save. But then, another image began to take form beside him. It was darker, more sinister, with eyes that glimmered like shards of glass. Why don't you remember the truth? It whispered in a voice that slithered like smoke. You were never the brave one. You were cowardly, just watching. No. Sarah's voice cracked with a mixture of anger and desperation. I want to let you twist this. Then show me. The voice boomed around her, echoing in a storm of rage. Face him. The moment you turn away the cowardice that brought this pain. Are you strong enough? In that instant, the eruption of memories shot through her like lightning. Faces, friends, family, loved ones flashed before her, each pleading with her to remember the moment she turned. She gasped, realizing that she had turned away from more than just that boy. She had turned away from her true self. Fear had wrapped around her heart like a vice, tightening until she felt suffocated. No more, she screamed, gripping her temples as waves of emotion churned within. No more running. I will embrace all of it. The shadows snarled, and for a heartbeat, everything slowed. The wind kissed her skin, and she felt a wave of warmth, one piece of her heart illuminating the storm. She thrust her arms forward, focusing the light. Look upon it, she cried, the shadows recoiling. See the truth. Brilliant tendrils of her light shot through the darkness, illuminating each familiar face, wrapping them in her warmth. They smiled at her, encouraging her. Little by little, the jagged edges of her guilt began to dissolve. She recalled the love shared, the adventures taken, and the bond that could not be severed by one terrible mistake. The monstrous figure seethed, its form flickering like a failed projection. You think this is enough? It seethed, its voice oozing contempt. Your strength is still a childess. You cannot conquer me. Yes, I can. Sarah insisted, the tremor in her voice sharpening into steel. You are made of my fear, my pain, but you don't define me. As if responding to her fierce declaration, the storm erupted in a cacophony of colors, her light struggling against the encroaching shadows with fervor. With every breath, she felt her heartbeat synchronize with the glow around her, pulsing like a beacon in the turbulent night. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the air. No, you will never belong to them. The monstrous figure spat, lashing out with tendrils of darkness. With a determined roar, Sarah willed the light to grow brighter, consuming the shadows. I am worthy. I belong to myself. But the shadows lunged again, wrapping shimmery strands around her wrists, pulling her into the depths. Panic surged through her. Would this be the moment the darkness finally reclaimed her? As the world around her dimmed, she thought of the warmth of laughter, the security of friendship. Remembering those smiles, Sarah prepared to push the darkness away once and for all. But what hideous truth would she unearth in that final confrontation? The shadows surged, heavy against her resolve. And, as the chaos roared, Sarah could only wonder if she truly had the strength to break free, or if she was destined to become just another lost voice, echoing through the abyss forever. The grip of the shadows tightened around her wrists, a chill that seeped into her bones. Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the darkness trying to claw its way into her thoughts, threatening to drown out the memories of laughter and light. You're not a warrior, Sarah, the sinister figure hissed, its voice slicing through her resolve. You're just a frightened girl who turns her back when things get tough. No, she shouted, choking back tears. That is not me anymore. With a surge of desperation, she focused on the light inside her. It flickered at first, then blazed with fierce clarity. It poured out of her like a fountain, illuminating the faces of those she had loved and lost. The warmth of their support wrapped around her, creating a shield against the encroaching darkness. But the shadows conspired. They twisted and pulled, reaching for her deepest fears. Face your cowardice. Remember why you turn away. They cackled. The walls of her mind trembled. She could feel the weight of doubt pressing down, suffocating her. What if they were right? What if her bravery was a facade? Memories surged moments of weakness, choices made in fear. She had abandoned them, hadn't she? No, she cried, fierce tears mingling with her defiance. I will not let you control me. With every pulse of light, she pushed against the darkness, letting it mingle with her memories. But the shadows countered, brightening the memory of the boy, the one she could not save. His face twisted in anguish. Their last moments together replayed like a haunting melody. The guilt wrapped around her throat, squeezing tighter. Do you see now? The sinister figure crooned, the flames of her courage flickering. You left him. You failed him. Sarah gasped as the sound of his laughter echoed in her mind. She could almost reach out and touch him. But the image shifted into something darker, a hollow echo of what could have been. No, this isn't fair. She screamed, anger igniting her defiance. You show me my pain, but you want to break me. I've learned to own my story. Energy pulsed through her veins like wildfire. She shut her eyes tight, focusing on the fire within. As she opened her eyes, the shadows shrieked, recoiling from the realization that her resolve had transformed into an unwavering force. I want to let you take me, she shouted, extending her hands toward the swirling darkness. The light exploded from her palms, sweeping through the air with a brilliance that cut through the murky depths. The shadows hissed, desperate to reclaim their hold. But she pressed onward, carving a path through them. "Face your truth," she yelled, tearing through their lingering smoke. The vision of the boy stood before her, free from the darkness. "I will protect those I love." A blinding burst erupted, casting the shadows aside. The tumult of memories cascaded around her, each infused with resilience and strength. And then, in the heart of that chaos, she felt a presence, a flicker of familiarity. It was subtle at first, but then crystallized into clarity. There, at the center of the chaos, stood someone she recognized, someone who should not be there. "No," she whispered, realization chilling her bones. "It can't be." The shadows recoiled at her shock, swirling angrily in an attempt to mix truth with more lies. But Sarah's heartbeat surged through every pulse of light. She stepped closer, the warmth beckoning her forward. "Who are you?" she demanded, the words shaky but firm. The face smiled a smile both tender and twisted. "I'm someone you thought you lost." The vortex of energy intensified, the shadows threatening another strike as Sarah faced this new revelation, a truth that felt as monumental as the darkness itself. Would confronting this familiar face lead her to her salvation, or deeper into the abysses of regret and pain? Sarah's heart stuttered as she stared into the face that had haunted her dreams, the face of Matt, the boy she thought she'd lost forever. Time felt suspended, the storms swirling around them as if waiting for her reaction. "Matt," she whispered, a mixture of relief and terror flooding her senses. "How is this possible?" His smile faded, sorrow filling his eyes. "You let me go, Sarah. You chose fear over friendship. But I never stopped caring. I'm here because you need to face the choices you made." The shadows hissed, drawing nearer, twisting into shapes that mirrored her darkest fears. "P.S. just part of the illusion," they hissed, their voices slithering around her. "You cannot trust him." "No," she shouted, grounding herself in her memories, fighting against the darkness threatening to consume her. "P.S. real to me. I want to let the shadows twist the truth." Lightning cracked above, moments of clarity cutting across centuries of echoes. She felt the warmth of their shared past, the moments of laughter that swirled around them like fireflies on a summer night. It bolstered her, fueling a fierce resolve deep within her bones. "Matt," she said, voice steady, "I will not run anymore. I need to understand the truth." His face brightened with a mix of hope and determination. "Then let them come. Embrace your past. Face your shadows. I'm with you." Taking a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself against the approaching figures. "You were a part of my life," she declared, taking a step forward. "But I am more than my past mistakes." The shadows writhed, recoiling as if struck by her words. "You can't escape what you've done. You abandoned them." "No, you are not my truth," she shouted, channeling every bit of her pain into courage. "I faced those memories and learned to forgive myself. You are just echoes, born from my fear." With each confident step forward, the light inside her intensified, clashing against the swirling shades that lurked. Memories rolled through her mind, times spent laughing, connections shared, and love that once flowed like sunlight, reminding her that her past mistakes didn't define the entirety of her journey. "I stood there and turned my back," she yelled, the energy swelling as she spoke. "I've carried that weight long enough. I am worthy of forgiveness, worthy of growth." The dark figures howled, launching themselves at her in a frenzy, but Sarah thrust her arms outward. "No more. I reclaim my truth." The light pulsed with brilliant intensity, casting aside the shadows as if they were mere wisps of fog. In that moment, she saw the faces of those she thought she'd lost: Ellie, Matt, the very people she had hurt. They emerged from the darkness, materializing as sparks of love, memories of laughter, unwavering support. Each face shifted her resolve, allowing her to rise above the current of despair. "Sarah, you've broken the chains. You're free," they called, harmonizing in a chorus of unity that overwhelmed the darkness. As the power surged, her cries merged into a battlefield roar that shattered the echoing silence. She felt their hands grasping hers, warm and familiar, pulling her from the edge of her fears until she stood solidly in the eye of the storm where clarity reigned. No, the shadows screamed, retreating against her brilliance. You cannot win, but was already too late. Empowered, she surged forward with a fury she'd never known. Each movement illuminated the skies, driving the darkness back into the recesses of her mind. In that final clash, she understood it was the acceptance of her journey, the understanding that pain can fuel transformation, that broke the hold of despair. With one final cry, a surge of light burst forth, radiating outward in a blinding explosion that left no room for shadows. The storm quelled, falling silent, soaked in the ethereal glow of Sarah's reclamation. As the light dimmed, Sarah found herself standing alone on the rain-slicked road, the storm now a distant memory. The air felt fresh, electric with possibility. Sarah's soft voice broke through the hush, and she turned to see Matt standing close. No longer a shadow, but solid and real. You did it. You faced everything. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not from pain, but from a release she had longed for. I know how to move forward now, she whispered. I will carry you all with me, always. Matt nodded, a proud smile crossing his face. And will always be here, through every storm. You are stronger than you realize. Together, they stepped away from the remnants of the night, leaving behind shadows. Sarah glanced back one last time. Feeling an exhilarating power flow through her, she had emerged not only as a survivor, but as a beacon of light aligned with a love that once seemed lost but was rediscovered. I'm ready to embrace the future, she said, ready to write her own story. And with that, the world opened up before her. Now, if you've enjoyed this dramatic conclusion, don't you wait another moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now. It feeds the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.